Greetings, everybody. This is Frequency Bones from a Music Connection 10, The Art of the Student, and it's video 11. And since it's getting into September and summer's technically over for a lot of students, that's for sure, right? This might be the second to the last video, or maybe there'll be one more. I'm not sure yet. But before September 21st, which is probably near the beginning of fall. But I thought it would be good to talk about a couple of things. And today is September 3rd, 2018. And it's an interesting day I always remember because it's 45 years ago exactly to this day that I started school in Boston at New England Conservatory. I just finished summer being in the Berkshire Music Center, BMC. That's what it was called before it was TMC. And it was a great summer, had a great time, and then went back to Minnesota, where I'm from, and for a week, and then came to Boston. And I remember that first day so vividly. And here it is, 45 years later. And that's how fast time can move. If you're 18 listening to this, it might not seem it. But it's okay. That's what life does. It moves on one way or the other. So that was the beginning of a very short college student experience for me. And when I was in school for that short period, I didn't complete my freshman year, really. I didn't feel like a student. In a regular, like, okay, I'm a freshman and this is what freshmen do. I didn't think like that because my projection for myself was in a certain direction. And I started to play with very big groups in Boston after the first 2 or 3 weeks of being in town. All these auditions were up on the bulletin board, and I didn't know what they were, and I signed up for them and got them all. And they were very good paying jobs for 1973. In fact, most people would be happy making $70 in a morning in 2018. If you're 18 years old, let alone 1973, where that could maybe happen twice a week. Pretty good. And that wasn't the only kind of job, doing these youth concerts with the Cambridge Brass Quintet. We actually made a really, I think, pretty good, fun recording on that. With Peter Chapman on trumpet, Bob Pettipaw on trumpet, Mike Johns on French horn, and Gary Offenloch, great friend of mine and roommate, great tubist. And we made this recording, and it was really good. The Boats is on it. A lot of really good stuff is on it. My point is, I didn't have a regular student experience. I didn't even live in the dorm. That was a fluke. I was supposed to, but I didn't. And so I was in an apartment right away with roommates who were going to Boston University, and a saxophonist, Don Bodio, who was going to New England Conservatory, actually. So here I am trying to go to school and yet doing all these jobs. My personal nature, I really didn't have, or I didn't want to, one or the other, but I couldn't practice as much as I wanted to, which was a lot, and do all those jobs and go to classes and ensembles. So it kind of collapsed on me. I just said, this isn't going to happen. Even though the dean talked to me and said, look, got to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And meanwhile, I was, but not to do the assigned work, to practice before maybe youth concerts, things like that. So life's incredible, huh? Everyone has a very different journey. But I've been working with students since I've been 12 years old, as I said. So probably within another year, I was starting to teach again in Boston. And then when I got into the Boston Symphony, not much after that, and was on the faculty of BU, of course I was teaching, and in the Empire Brass Quintet. So it's not your usual student format. So I used to tell my students that back then, do not go by me. You are you. I will give you everything that I know if you're ready for it. So that's one of the most important things with the art of the student, is starting with your can-do point, and that is with where you're at. And if you're really serious about, getting better and better and better, then you have a consistency in your practice. You have obviously a regularity in your practice. You know the importance of maintenance work, or you're learning about the importance of maintenance work, and having a balanced diet, and still having a long view, as well as something right up close view. What are your goals for the week? What do you want to accomplish in a day? All these things are important. Maybe some people would call them arts, but they can be approached artfully, meaning thoughtfully and meaningfully, and because you want to. So it's a very interesting thing. So I felt compelled to make a video today, since I started my very short college career. But I've been teaching college since 1975. So I've been immersed with working with college students, even though I was their same age and younger. It was still a similar process to now, except I'm a lot more equipped in many different kinds of ways. Even though people can see me and say, oh, but you still had this and this, they're seeing that which is the same, but they're not paying attention to all the expanse that can naturally happen if you're in a process of growth. That tree is going to get more branches. It's going to have different kinds of fruit. You're going to see applications of things. You're going to get to read people a little bit better. In fact, a lot better, in terms of being able to diagnose the situation and be able to give them things, especially if you're versed in the overlay system, which some people are in their own way, whether they know the title of that or not. But if you are, then you can know, oh, this is for this, and this is for this overlay, and that's for the other one. And that basically, what I give people is like the whole kit and caboodle at one time, whether they know that or not. So, the art of the student. But I'm going to bring this to a very important thing, because I think this person, the student I have at Boston Conservatory, is named Christopher Leslie. He's going to be starting his sophomore year. And he really thinks a lot. And he wrote me this email. I really want to read a paragraph of it. And I think this will bring home a lot of what I've been talking about. So he's been studying with me for a year, and he's going to start his second year at Boston Conservatory at Berkeley this week. Okay, so let me read this paragraph for you. It's been super interesting following your series on the art of the student, especially since I had some private trombone students this summer. They were all in middle school, but it was fascinating to learn about being a student by teaching students. One of them in particular really inspired me in terms of passion and immediate application. And another proved how smart middle school kids really are when it comes to understanding concepts in music and brass playing. For example, using colors or textures to focus people's sounds, concept, and have better consistency. Probably one of the biggest things I learned as a teacher was how different everyone is. And when I teach someone, I have to speak their language. And in parentheses, he had, a mom told me she was really happy to see that I was able to speak in Cullen to her son, who's obviously his name was Cullen. Also, I was able to explore different approaches to developing air support, in parentheses, which is good because I've been working on that a lot myself. End of parentheses. One of my students really latched on to the idea of biking up a hill, where you always supply more energy or you fall over. Being like air support, where you always have to supply more energy to support your system. Now, I'll tell you, from my perspective, after him studying with me a year, to have that feedback come to me like that, I was really touched because this person had immediate application. And they did throughout the year. But then they took that right into their teaching. That bike example of breathing, that didn't come from me. That came from his life putting that together. And he said something very important. You want to know about the art of the student? Work with students. Get some students as fast as you can. You don't have to be a master to pass on knowledge, to pass on what you know. Do it in a way that's, in my view, do it in a way that's someone who's 10, do it so you inspire them, so you have fun with them, and still get the work done. Why not? Do you have to sit them down, put them in a straitjacket with a ruler in your hand, ready to slap them if they don't do something right? Or they don't come back next week flawless? God, I hope not. But I know certain students who have studied with students of some other teachers who've maybe been on the firmer side, and they carry this thing. And that thing might be for some people, but I think you got to wait till they're a little older, and even then, you know what? I'm not clear. Now, I don't mind discipline at all. But what kind? Does it have to be in a prison discipline? That's forced confinement. It depends on where it's coming from and the sentiment of the teacher. Because as a teacher, one of the most important arts you can pass on to the student is a healthy attitude, a balance of, hey, their life is up to them. Make sure you tell them that. And so you're going to have to do the work to get more from me, to dispense. Both of our times are valuable, and we don't want to waste it. I think that's an important thing. But to pass on your love, your joy, your inspiration, and the knowledge and feeling that, if you really want to do this, guess what? You have to be inside of it. You have to stick with it. It's like a relationship. You want to build it, you have to be with it. And you have to be sensitive to what it wants. That's not complicated. It's really not. You can say, if you're in sports and you want to build your body up, your biceps, triceps, any kind of sept, even your concepts, you're going to have to be consistent at it. And always remind yourself, if you're getting like, why am I in this? During some tough times, remind yourself of the love of music. And people sometimes get so tromboned, so into their little teeny thing, that they're not having the joy of listening to other instruments. And a lot of people, what about listening to even other kinds of music? There's a lot more people who are referenced in a lot of other kinds of music. I think about, and my sister was playing rock and roll all the time in the house, so I heard a lot of it. I used to love oldies, actually, even from a young age, and probably from my dad playing them in the car. And I liked big band stuff. I did. I liked some jazz, especially J.J. Johnson and Louis Armstrong and some Miles and some other people, but I was getting very focused on the orchestra thing. I was so in love with it that I never felt I needed to hear different genres. I was raised Jewish, and so a lot of that music from the synagogue and those prayer services, I really, really loved. And other music as well. But my point is, maybe someone has to be more expansive than I was. In other words, the real art of the student is called know thyself. And the more you grow, make sure you be in touch with what you want to do and like, and what you need, whether you like it or not. So my little birdie is falling asleep, as you can see behind me. He's, call him she, but he's a he. We'll say she, though, because we thought Atlantis was a she for the first 8 years before we had him sexed. He's tired. It's been a long day. So I hope this helps. I hope you're inspired by Chris, because he was coming from his own life. And he was learning, working with another person. And so he learned a lot about things from working with other people this summer. I was so happy to hear that. And for those listening who don't teach, get out there and work with someone. And remember this: you're working with another human being. They're their own unique creation. They have their own actions and reactions, their own likes and dislikes, their own senses of humor, their own moods. Remember that. Try to find the doorway in to them And then, as a teacher, you'll have probably some good fortune finding the arts in them as you practice your arts. And so you get a duet of art between the two of you